up, everybody? About a month ago, I asked you all to give me your spiciest or most controversial Marvel Snap hot takes. Today, we're going to be going over some of those, reacting to them, seeing what you guys think. Now, a little bit of caveat, obviously we've had a couple patches since then, so maybe some of the things that's brought up in this video have already been addressed or patched. You were right in that scenario, but let's go through. First up, we've got Regis saying he doesn't have his own, but Dexter told him that he loves Subterranean, thinks it's the very best location in the game. This is dripping in sarcasm, but I appreciate it. Subterranean is a demon. It's torture. Location power creep. Too many locations that are too game altering and too impressive. One of the biggest issues in the game. I can see it, and I also think they've been doing a good job of cycling some new locations in recently. I think they definitely fell into a little bit of a funk where there was too many, like, destroy this card, kill this card, blow up this card, destroy your deck. There's too many destroy locations in a row, and a lot of those just completely interrupt your ability to play the game. So their most recent locations of, like, what is it, Quantum Tunnel, the Sentinel Forge, a lot of the ones that they're doing now where they just kind of modify the game board, I think has been a good change. And I do think that this one was a threat that they have been addressing well, and I think maybe it was just a kind of rough patch of two similar locations. We've got card acquisition is fine, monetization is fine. Second dinner will figure out the best price point for bundles, and not buying a bundle has 100 times the effect of complaining. Buying a bundle that you think is fair has 100,000 times the effect of complaining. I actually agree in general, yeah. I still think token acquisition and new card acquisition needs a little bit of work. Specifically the Series 5 situation. I think that is a big issue in the game right now. Nobody's excited about new cards. It's hard to keep up with new cards unless you're spending money on the game. But I do think that everything else, like the Series 1 through 3 kind of situation, I think is honestly quite solid and keeps getting better. And I do agree a lot about the bundles. I know there's a lot of people who are completely free to play and never spend a dime on the game. And a lot of people who are mostly free to play, only buy the season passes. That's great. The game needs players of all types. But the single best way to show Second Dinner what the community wants bundle-wise is to buy the bundles that are good value. So things like the Lunar New Year event, I hope everybody bought that bundle that is willing and able to spend money on the game, because that shows them that these are the types of things we want. Like that other, what was it? I think it comes out on Wednesdays, the one bundle that gives you like 500 tokens and a variant for 700 gold or whatever it is. That's a great value. I hope everybody's buying that if they're able to and willing to. But yeah, there's also going to be bad bundles. It's the way these mobile games work. And they've been kind of experimenting more and more. We'll see how that goes. It's not enough room on Twitter servers for Marvel Snap hot takes, but I hope people will come around sooner than later that cool, unique cards like Arrow, Leader, and Wave should not be nerfed. We've got 2 out of 3 on this list nerfed already, unfortunately for Loot Muncher. I can see it. You don't want every game to just come down to generic point slams. There are obviously some interactions or situations that need to be addressed. But I think we've talked about this on the channel a couple times, where the reason why cards like Leader and Arrow wind up so powerful is that the entire game really just comes down to turn 6 surprises, and Leader and Arrow were a way to say, I don't care what your surprise is, I'm going to win anyway. So yeah, it's until turns 1 through 4-ish get addressed, the turn 5 and 6 cards are going to keep paying the price, unfortunately. You fix the meta with buffs, not nerfs. Unfortunately, it has to be both. Buffs are infinitely more risky than nerfs. Buffs are much harder to test the impact of. But buffs do go a longer way than nerfs in making things feel fresh and new. So, in my opinion, you nerf to fix the meta, buff to change things up and keep things fresh. If they go hand in hand, you need a healthy amount of both. Dracula's ability should be ongoing so it can be countered. I do agree Dracula having some sort of more reliable counter would feel better. Not that Dracula decks have ever been like top tier, but they can feel very bad to lose to. I don't know if an ongoing ability would quite work language-wise, but having some way to play around Dracula outside of like Maximus would be pretty cool. Zabu is still the best card in the game, and it's a 2-energy Serra. Silver Surfer is still a top tier card. Snap has more RNG than any other card game, and Leader shouldn't have been nerfed. Spicy, 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 spicy. Safety Blade going off right now. But honestly, I don't think most of these are that ridiculous. Like, Zabu still is an incredible card, and this was pretty fresh after the Zabu nerfs, so this was like a confident take, and I think it's a pretty fair one. I don't know if I'd go best card in the game, but I definitely would put it in one of like that top upper echelon of cards, so I'm definitely fully on board with that. Silver Surfer, I agree. I think Silver Surfer is still a great card. It's just not a massive I win button that it was, and now people don't think it's as flashy or cool. Snap has more RNG than any other card game. I think if you factor in the just inherent RNG of locations, I'm on board with that. Leader should not have been nerfed. I think in a vacuum, yes, but also the way those games were playing out, unfortunately. Although now, I think people would take Leader back to answer the Shuri life that we have found ourselves in. Uatu's stock may go up over time. I think he would if his ability worked just by being in your deck. Having to draw him makes him so much worse. But I do think if you got either a stat buff or activated in your deck, Uatu would just get better and better over time. Hot take, I should have won this game. Oh, the Reality Stone bit ya. That's rough. Agatha should be a permanent Series 5 card like Thanos and Galactus. That's an interesting thought. Not because I'm not gonna claim to be a Marvel lore expert, but I don't think she's on that level of villain as Thanos or Galactus or Kang. But I can see the mindset of villains with super unique abilities being in Series 5, and I think that makes sense with how they've been pushing the game, but I also think it doesn't make sense from the mindset of putting every single cool and unique card as a permanent Series 5. Just kind of feels bad, I think. And I think that wouldn't really be a road that I want us to go down. As long as Series 4 and 5 cards are a big part of Tier 1 decks, Marvel Snap is a pay-to-win game. They're doing a great job at hiding that fact. I mean, you can make the argument purely on Season Pass cards, in my opinion. So, like, the Zabu and Silver Surfer season were rough, because if you were the type that didn't buy the Season Passes, you were at an inherent disadvantage because those cards are everywhere. In terms of like Series 5 cards coming out, outside of a handful of content creators and mega whales, nobody has Series 5 cards when they come out. And the amount of playtesting and refining that it takes to take a lot of those cards from deck concept to very good deck, it takes a lot of gameplay. And without having a ton of people having the card, you don't get that kind of testing going down. So, like, the Thanos deck took a while to really come out. Shuri took a while to come out. I was playing something similar for a while, but the current Shuri incarnation took a long time. It took a lot of people getting Shuri and Thanos to really make it happen. So, a handful of content creators and whales having a Series 5 card doesn't give them an inherent advantage, because most of the time these people aren't building optimal decks. And unless one of these cards that come out is super, super overtuned and overpowered, they don't really get an inherent advantage. And aside from the advantage of having more options to have fun, And that is a bigger problem, in my opinion, is that nobody gets to play with new cards, and who wants that in a card game? The Marvel Snap economy is great, and people who complain about it are just angry because they like being angry. I would split the two halves of this sentence up. I think the economy is good in general, but there's some really big issues that need to be fixed. But I do think there are a lot of people who are just angry and like being angry and always going to be angry no matter what, and you can't please them. I don't think these two are linked, in my opinion, but I agree with parts of both. Subterranean is fine. It's a location that hits some deck worse than others, like lots of negative locations do. I've talked about this one before. I like the idea behind Subterranean because it rewards decks that are just kind of generally good. So like a Shuri deck that needs a couple specific cards on a couple specific turns to be powerful. Obviously Subterranean hits that harder than if I was just playing, let's say, a mid-range deck with Cloak and Maximus and Polaris and, just a bunch of good power for the cost cards. Subterranean doesn't hit me as hard. And I think one of the biggest things Snap needs is more pushes towards that ladder type of gameplay or deck, where kind of just playing on curve powerful cards, more tempo oriented, they need more pushes in that direction to kind of keep the greed of some of these combos out in line and those kind of turn 6 swings. I know I've talked about the tech cards role in that. We've talked about a lot of different things on this channel, but the more things push or more incentive you have to push into just a generally good deck, the better. Now, do I think Subterranean goes about that in the best way? Absolutely not. It feels horrible to draw 5 rocks in a row. But I do like, I think, the idea or what Subterranean is trying to force. I shouldn't be on Collector Reserve 38 without a new card. I'm assuming this person is in the pool for pain life. I feel your pain, brother. Mr. Negative wasn't OP during the beta. All you had to do was run Enchantress and Cosmo. I don't know if Mr. Negative was ever OP, actually. I think it was more... he is a super high roll deck, and the high rolls feel really bad, so they wanted to bring down his mid rolls, so that you kind of had to high roll to win. Now, is that good design, and is the constant threat of Mr. Negative good for other balance changes? That's another topic for another time. Cosmo is a bad doggy. Now, this kind of... There's saying it specifically about Cosmo, but I agree about basically all the tech cards in this game. They're too good and too well statted for their cost. They just murder decks. They fit into too many decks because too many decks run like a 2 to 3 card win condition. So you have 9 cards of flex spots and tech spots. This is a little aggressive towards this beautiful doggy, but I agree in general. Ben Brode is fundamentally bad at game design. I don't agree with most of this, all of this. I don't think Second Dinner acts in bad faith at all. They've been very transparent. They've flipped a lot of things. I think Second Dinner has been great. And Ben, I don't know him personally, but Hearthstone and Snap are both good games. I don't think you could be bad at game design and pump out those two bad boys. We need card buffs and a lot of it, I agree. Series 4 and 5 are a stupid concept. I think they're a good concept, just poor execution. But I think you're onto something here. I just think the execution needs better. Inkified variants are inferior to color ones. Now, that's a hot topic. I think that depends on the card, in my opinion. There's a lot of Inkifieds that look incredible. Like the Lizard one I got recently is incredible. One of the Wong ones I think I got was pretty nice. But there are also a lot of Inkifieds that don't look good. And then there's some that the gold looks just way better. It all depends on the card and the art for me. Sunday featured locations are good for the game. Once a week you have a shake-up in the meta that allows for new deck building. I think people are just kind of getting burnt out on it, and I also think featured locations are as good as the locations they feature. So if a new location is super narrow or only pushes one type of deck, I think featured locations are pretty rough during that time period. Or if a featured location um, gives a significant buff to a deck that's already kind of too good in the meta. Like the other day when we had Elysium and it brought like Thanos back to pre-nerf. Stuff like that feels pretty bad. But I do like the kind of mini meta games that they can introduce as well. Arrow is the best and most fun tech card in the game. I think, well, nerfing it would ruin the fun of the game. I am sorry in advance that happened. I do think she was the most fun tech card in the game, but I do think all of the tech cards are too strong. Arrow is just the first one that's really gotten hit now. Galactus is a problem card, and an Arrow nerf would make it too good. That is an interesting call out because Galactus did see a rise in play after Arrow nerf. I don't think Galactus is a problem card as much as a very linear and probably unfun card. And I like Galactus a lot, but it just kind of turns into one of those decks where if I have like Polaris and predict your Galactus play, it's an instant win and you feel horrible. If I don't play one of those cards in my deck, you're going to have a guaranteed win and I feel horrible. It's just a very linear black and white game for both sides. And that's good for a lot of people. It's a pretty easy deck to pilot. It's pretty straightforward. And playing against it, it's pretty straightforward as well. Is that good for the game? I don't know, but a lot of people seem to enjoy it. It's a fun card in general. But the matchups and games with and against it can sometimes be a little dry. We need a way to sort by number of boosters. God, yes, please. I want this so bad. There should be some sort of pity timer for Pool 5. Absolutely agree. This game relies too much on the Series 2 tech cards. Isaac, you are a man after my heart. I'm going to keep singing this song until people start listening. Absolutely, yes. 100%. But also, they're unfortunately still necessary because of the rest of the game. It would take a whole lot of balance changes to do things. Leader was fine and could be countered. He might as well have no ability now. He did get over-nerfed. And he could be countered, but I also think that he was just kind of stealing too many wins. But I do think Leader should get redesigned again at some point. When Zola copies a card, it should not activate its on reveal. That would be a pretty major change to mechanics in the game, and then it would be a little awkward because it would not operate the way you're expecting. Arrow is almost as broken as pre-nerf Leader. I actually do that comparison quite a bit. Whether you think either one should have been nerfed is a different story, but Arrow did operate quite a bit like pre-nerf Leader of if you're winning on turn 5, you can win the game automatically a lot of the time. Leader should not have been nerfed. I agree he was never as powerful as Albu or Surfer, but just felt bad. We've talked about a couple of these. Card acquisition, Leader nerf, bad locations. We're heading towards a downward power creep for nerfs. I don't think so. This was around the Leader nerfs and the Thanos and Shuri decks that we were playing against for a while. I think are the strongest decks we've seen in Snap so far. Maybe the new cards' upward power trajectory is offsetting the downward nerf trajectory, but there's I think the power level in general is heading upwards. They don't care about the PC version. I do agree they were prioritizing mobile. Interested to see what the PC actual dedicated version looks like. The Steam version is not the PC version. It's just kind of like a mobile port made for PC, or the mobile version made into a PC version. I'm hoping the dedicated PC version is very nice. Wasp and Yellow Jacket are too strong. I would love some context around that. I would love to hear that. If your deck relies on Wong, it's not good. He's super telegraphed and countered. He is one of the easier to play around kind of win condition-y cards. I agree. And that's why things like Shuri kind of took Wong's place in the Get Giant gameplay world. I think Arrow is currently the best card in the game. I agree. Or was, not anymore. Card acquisition is brilliant. There's always something just out of reach. Yes, but they need to kind of sprinkle a little magic dust on there. Make some of the middle parts a little bit better. I hope they add some packs to rip. That's kind of what the Nexus events were going to be. But they were just not done super well. Helicarrier is the best card for discard decks. I don't know about best, but it's a very good one. I think the 3 starting locations should always be 1 positive, 1 negative, and 1 neutral. The tough thing with that is what's positive and what's negative and what's neutral depends on what deck you're playing. Because even something like Subterranea might be more negative for you than for me. That one you could argue that it's a negative all around, and how negative is a spectrum, so maybe that's not the best example. But like Elysium, if I'm playing a full-on, heavy costing deck, I might not want everything to cost 1 less, because I don't really get to take advantage of that as much as my opponents might. So I don't think it's that black and white of what's positive and what's negative. I don't know how I would attempt to reign in the RNG of locations, or if I even would. I'd have to give some thought to that. Doesn't matter how much power Arrow has, she'll be played just as much as she is now. I do agree. You shouldn't be able to change, transform, ruin, flood the featured location. I don't know about that one. I think this person doesn't like when people play like Cosmo and featured Camartage, for example. And then we'll finish off with there shouldn't be boosters and credits in collector's levels. I disagree, and I only disagree for this reason. The devs made the collector's track with those rewards in mind. If they weren't there, those things would just be removed and there would be empty slots on the reward tracks. That's the way I look at it. So it's either, do you want boosters and credits, or do you want nothing? It's the same thing with like the season pass caches. Most of the time, do they suck? Yeah, absolutely. Most of the time, they're garbage. You get like 50 credits or 10 boosters. But it's much better than getting nothing after the season pass ends. So that's where I'm at on that one. So yeah, that's your Marvel Snap hot takes. I'm sure there's more that I missed scrolling through and all that and didn't even get a chance to reply to. But that was a lot of fun. And maybe we'll do another one of these soon to see how everybody's opinions or hot takes have changed over the last month. Maybe we'll wait another month or two and do another one. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of some of these hot takes. If you guys have any new hot takes you want to drop down below in the comments section. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Helps me out a lot. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.